Remember when there's only one Apple Pencil and it had a lightning connector and you would plug it right into the side of the iPad to pair and charge it? And even though there were opportunities for improvement, you didn't have to spend any time choosing. Well, now, not only do we have 4 Apple Pencils to choose from, but every current iPad is compatible with 2 versions. So how do you choose? First, let's talk about the 4 options. We have the first generation Apple Pencil, the second generation Apple Pencil, the Apple Pencil USB-C, and the Apple Pencil Pro. Now, looking at size, you could see that the first generation pencil is the longest at 6.92 inches. That's mostly due to the lightning plug and the cap. The second generation pencil and the Pro are the same length at 6.5 inches. Then the USB-C version is the shortest at 6.1 inches. Now, this isn't a major difference, but I do find that the second gen, the USB-C and the Pro models are more comfortable to hold and to use, but that's partially due to the design, which we'll get to in a minute. So all 4 pencils have the same diameter of 0.35 inches or 8.9 millimeters, but the first generation pencil is the only one that is completely round. The other 3 options have a flat edge, which makes them much more comfortable to hold. Now, the other 3 are also less slippery because they have a matte finish, unlike the glossy finish on the first generation pencil. If you haven't had a chance to hold any of these or see them in real life, but you do happen to have AirPods, the first generation pencil feels like the outside of the AirPods case, which in my opinion leads to a less secure grip than the other 3. And because of that, it makes sense that once Apple went with the new finish, they never looked back. Now, in addition to being more comfortable to hold and to use, the Apple Pencil models that have a flat edge are also less likely to roll off your desk. Now, if you do end up using the first generation pencil and it's too slippery for you, there are a ton of super affordable grips which solve both the grip problem and the rolling issues. Now, I'll get to the lightning plug in just a moment, but from a design standpoint and my personal user experience, the cap on the first generation Apple Pencil is super easy to lose. You have to take it off every time you want to charge the pencil, and then you have to remember to put it back on. And I lost mine within the first couple of weeks, and I have been using a third-party replacement cap that I ended up buying on Amazon. Now, when it comes to charging, there are a few ways to charge the first generation pencil. The first is by plugging it into the lightning port of the iPad if you're still using an iPad that has a lightning port, so that's something like the iPad 8 or iPad 9. And this is also how you initially pair it with those types of iPads. Now, this is my least favorite way to charge the first generation pencil because it's just sitting there sticking out of the iPad and it could very easily get damaged. It also means that I can't actually charge the iPad while I'm charging the pencil. Now, the second option is to use a USB-C to lightning adapter that comes with the first generation pencil, and then use a USB-C cable. Now, moving on, the Apple Pencil USB-C has a tip that's attached and then it pulls away to reveal a USB-C port. And you could use a USB-C cable to charge it and then simply close the cap when you're done. Now, I like this better than the first generation pencil because you can't lose the cap and you don't need any adapters. You'll also use a USB-C cable to pair this Apple Pencil with your iPad. Now, the second generation Apple Pencil and the Apple Pencil Pro take care of charging and pairing by attaching to the magnetic connectors on the long side of your iPad. Now, this is super convenient. You don't need any other accessories, and since you store both pencils on the side of the iPad, they're pretty much always fully charged. In terms of battery life, all 4 pencils have lasted me way longer than I've ever needed them. Like, they've never run out while I'm using them if I started out with them at 100%. The issue I have with the first generation pencil and the Apple Pencil USB-C version is that I just forget to charge them if I haven't used them in a while. And then I just pick them up, try to use them, and realize that they're at 0%. Now, it's not really a huge deal because both of them charge super quickly, but it's just not something that I ever need to think about with the second generation pencil and the Apple Pencil Pro. And of the 2 more basic models, I like the USB-C version better because I pretty much always have one of those cables around, and again, I don't need an adapter. Now, in terms of the actual feel, when you're using them, all 4 pencils use the same tip, so the feel of the pencil hitting the glass is the same. As far as features, all 4 of them have the same low latency, the same level of precision and tilt sensitivity, which you can use for shading and other effects. What's interesting here is that the Apple Pencil USB-C version doesn't support pressure sensitivity, so it doesn't respond to different levels of pressures like the other 3, which actually includes the first generation. Now, next, the USB-C version, the second gen, and the Pro models magnetically attach to the side of the iPad for easy storage. But remember that the USB-C version is only there for storage. It's not actually charging, and it can't be paired that way. Now, all 3 of those pencils also support Apple Pencil Hover, which gives you an indicator of the position of the pencil when it's hovering over the display, and it also interacts with different UI elements. Now, only the second generation pencil and the Pro models have a double tap function to quickly switch between tools, and they are the only ones that come with free engraving if that's something that's important to you. And now the last set of features is reserved for only the Apple Pencil Pro. So starting with barrel roll, which is useful with rotating shaped pen and brush tools. We have the squeeze function, which can be used to open a palette for switching between tools, line weights, and colors. The Pro model also has haptic feedback when doing things like squeezing or tapping, and it's the only one that has Find My, so you can easily find it using the Find My app. Now, as far as compatibility, every current iPad is compatible with 2 options. Now, I'm going to show you a complete list of iPads up to this point, and I'll link to an article in the description, which I'll keep updated as new iPad models get released. So if you already own an iPad and it does everything that you need, pick one of the Apple Pencils that's compatible. And at this point, I would only use the first generation Apple Pencil if you already happen to own it, or if you need pressure sensitivity and you're using an iPad where your only 2 options are the first generation Apple Pencil and the USB-C model. If you're deciding between the USB-C pencil and the Pro models, it's going to come down to whether you're an artist and you need things like, again, pressure sensitivity, barrel roll, the squeeze function, and haptic feedback, or if you just value wireless pairing and charging and the ability to locate your Apple Pencil in the Find My app. Now, personally, I would always get the Pro model, not because I need those additional features, but because I super value the convenience of wireless charging, and I'm also really likely to forget where I left my Apple Pencil. Now, the difference is $60, so that's significant, and I look at it as a one-time expense that will provide a better user experience every time I use it. But again, that's because I value those conveniences and because I misplace my stuff all the time. Now, if you don't own an iPad yet and you have specific use cases that involve the Apple Pencil, then just make sure that the iPad you buy supports the Apple Pencil that you plan on getting. One last thing to keep in mind is that only the iPad Pro models have ProMotion, which is Apple's adaptive refresh rate of up to 120 Hz. And because the screen can refresh at twice the rate of the other iPads, the Apple Pencil may appear to be more responsive. Remember that I have links in the description to all the products I talked about. You know what I always say? Buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.